If a doctor ran blood work on a patient who looked pale and tired, the first question wouldn't be, how much are they eating? It would be, what specifically are they missing? A person can eat plenty of calories and still be anemic, pale, low on energy, not because they're starved, but because one specific mineral isn't getting where it needs to go. Your lawn is running the exact same diagnostic problem, and almost nobody treats it that way. $200. That's what the average American homeowner spends each season on synthetic lawn fertilizer for a quarter-acre yard. And by August, much of that lawn has faded back to yellow anyway. Meanwhile, sitting in most kitchens right now are 5 ordinary ingredients that, mixed correctly, produce grass deep enough in color to embarrass any chemically fed lawn next door. Old gardening books and golf course superintendents have quietly circulated this recipe for over 50 years. The science behind it is real. The math is more interesting than anyone runs, and the timing depends on something almost no lawn video mentions, the actual kind of grass growing under your feet. Today, I'm running the full diagnosis. As an anatomist, this is exactly the kind of case I can't resist. Malnutrition and anemia are 2 different problems with 2 different fixes, and your lawn has both. Stay to the end and you'll have the exact tonic recipe, the stronger alternative almost nobody talks about, the timing windows for your specific grass, and the professional trick that fixes color without forcing growth at all. Welcome to Evergreen Garden.
Chapter 1. Why Bagged Fertilizer Keeps Lawns Hooked. The story behind how residential lawn care ended up here traces back to 1913, when chemists Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch developed a way to pull nitrogen straight out of the air and turn it into liquid ammonia at an industrial scale. That breakthrough fed billions of people after both world wars. The same factories that had produced ammonia for munitions found a peacetime market in agricultural fertilizer, and by the early 1950s, that market expanded into American backyards. A new post-war ideal, the perfect emerald lawn as a symbol of homeownership, spread through advertising and lawn service contracts. Companies built entire business models around recurring residential applications because the economics were simple. A one-time bag of compost sells once. A bag of synthetic feed gets sold again every 6 weeks. That logic still drives the lawn aisle at every hardware store today. Here's what actually happens when granular fertilizer hits the ground. Grass blades absorb the salt-based nutrients through tiny pores called stomata, and color floods in within days. But underneath the surface, those same salts pull moisture out of the surrounding soil. Roots stay shallow. They have no reason to dig deep because the food is sitting right at the top. Within 4 to 6 weeks, the salts wash through the soil, the green fades, and the cycle starts over, right on schedule. It's the lawn care equivalent of a sugar high. Fast energy, no real nourishment, and a crash. The long-term damage is quieter and easier to miss. After several seasons of heavy synthetic feeding, the soil itself starts to feel different, denser, harder to push a shovel into, and slower to absorb water during a heavy rain. Earthworm activity drops. A lawn that once bounced back easily from a dry summer starts taking longer and longer to recover. These are the visible signs of soil pressured into a kind of long-term exhaustion. But while bagged fertilizer was taking over the front yard, a quieter knowledge survived in basements, garden sheds, and the pamphlets of organic gardening clubs built around 5 ingredients sitting in most pantries this very moment.
Chapter 2. The 5-ingredient tonic. This recipe was popularized by gardening author Jerry Baker, whose books were fixtures on American bookshelves through the 1970s and 80s. 5 ingredients, each doing a specific job. The recipe: 1 can of regular non-diet soda, 1 can of regular beer, not light beer, half a cup of liquid dish soap, free of antibacterial additives, half a cup of household ammonia, half a cup of mouthwash. These get poured into a hose-end sprayer set for 10 to 20 gallons of total flow. The concentrate is never poured directly onto grass. The sprayer mixes it with rushing water as it flows, diluting the concentrate hundreds of times before it touches a single blade. Apply in the cool of early morning, around 6 a.m., when stomata sit wide open and evaporation is at its lowest. Now, the chemistry, ingredient by ingredient. Household ammonia delivers a small, instant dose of nitrogen. Half a cup of standard 5 to 10% household ammonia provides roughly 6 grams of nitrogen, a fraction of what a synthetic feeding contains, but enough to give microbes a quick chemical signal that nitrogen is available. Once diluted through a hose and sprayer, this dose sits well below any burn threshold. Liquid dish soap acts as a surfactant. It breaks the surface tension of water, letting the tonic penetrate compacted soil instead of beating on the surface and rolling off into the street. Without it, much of any liquid tonic would never reach the root zone, where the actual work happens. Mouthwash is the most debated ingredient. Old-time gardeners believed the alcohol and essential oils disrupted soft-bodied pests like aphids and grubs. Modern turfgrass research doesn't support that claim. Diluted across roughly 40 liters of water in a hose and sprayer, the active compounds drop to trace levels, far below anything that could affect insect physiology. Its honest function in this recipe is a mild secondary surfactant, nothing more. Many experienced gardeners now skip it entirely without losing any visible result. The two ingredients everyone overlooks are the soda and the beer. They're not feeding the grass at all. They're feeding something else, the most overlooked workforce in any backyard. A few things to avoid. Never apply during the heat of midday, when stomata are partially closed and most liquid evaporates before absorption. Never apply right before a heavy rain, which simply washes the tonic away. Never apply to a lawn visibly stressed from drought. Water deeply the evening before, then apply the tonic the following morning. Never apply to dormant grass during winter or during peak summer heat for warm season lawns, since there's no active root system to receive the benefit. Apply the tonic every 3 weeks during the active growing season.
Chapter 3. The microbiome under your feet. A single teaspoon of healthy lawn soil contains up to 1 billion bacteria. Researchers from the Earth Microbiome Project have documented tens of thousands of microbial species in agricultural and turfgrass soils, with fungal filaments threaded through that same teaspoon so finely the human eye can't detect them. This community is called the soil microbiome, and in the narrow zone right around grass roots, a zone soil scientists call the rhizosphere, an exchange takes place every single day the sun shines. It's not unlike what happens in your own gut. Grass performs photosynthesis and creates liquid sugars in its blades, and anywhere from 5% to 30% of those sugars get pushed back down through the roots and released deliberately into the surrounding soil. Not a leak, a trade. Those released sugars attract specific beneficial bacteria, and fungi extend microscopic threads called hyphae deep into the surrounding earth, mining for trapped phosphorus, water, and minerals that grass roots alone could never reach, then delivering it straight back to the roots. A separate group of soil bacteria handles nitrogen specifically, ammonia oxidizing archaea and ammonia oxidizing bacteria, shortened to AOA and AOB, converting raw nitrogen compounds into the exact nitrate forms grass can absorb. Peer-reviewed research published in Frontiers in Microbiology confirms healthy populations of these specific microbes are the actual engines of any working lawn nitrogen cycle. The same research showed something sobering. Long-term heavy synthetic nitrogen applications substantially reduce the diversity of these microbes. Chemical fertilizer kills off the very organisms that would otherwise produce nitrogen for free. Nitrogen is only one job the microbiome handles. Phosphorus is another. Most yards already contain plenty, but it sits chemically locked to soil particles, unavailable to roots, until specific bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi solubilize it and deliver it back. Disease suppression is a third. Healthy microbial populations crowd out and outcompete root pathogens that would otherwise cause brown thinning patches. Drought tolerance is a fourth. Mycorrhizal threads dramatically extend the effective root zone, giving grass access to moisture from far more soil than its own roots could ever explore. Every one of these benefits is free, as long as the microbes are alive and active. This is where the soda and the residual carbohydrates in beer feed the soil microbes directly. The microbes multiply, break down thatch, aerate the soil, and unlock nutrients already present but locked away. The grass gets fed because the microbes get fed first. Before we get into the math on this, because there's a version of this recipe most lawn videos never run the numbers on, I put the full tonic recipe, the Molasses Drench alternative, exact timing charts for your grass type, and the iron technique coming up later into a single free companion ebook. The link's in the description, no email needed. Now, the math nobody runs.
Chapter 4. Tonic versus Molasses Drench. The math nobody runs. A complete Jerry Baker tonic batch, 1 can of soda, 1 can of beer, plus the half cups of ammonia, soap, and mouthwash gets diluted into a 20-gallon hose and sprayer flow, roughly 76 liters of total water. The combined sugar load from the soda and beer comes to about 49 grams, spread across a typical 5,000 square foot lawn. Run the math, and that works out to roughly 1/10 of a gram of sugar per square meter. Now consider the molasses stretch, the technique organic gardeners reach for when they want a stronger microbial wake-up. Standard rate: 2 tablespoons of unsulfured blackstrap molasses per gallon of water, applied at 1 gallon of solution per 100 square feet of lawn. 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses contains approximately 32 grams of sugar. Run that same math, and it works out to roughly 3.5 grams of sugar per square meter, about 34 times more microbial fuel per square meter than the Jerry Baker Tonic delivers. That's a meaningful gap, and almost no lawn video runs these numbers. The Jerry Baker Tonic is a spark, the Molasses Drench is a meal. So which one belongs in a real program? Both. They do different jobs. The Tonic spreads quickly across a large lawn, includes a built-in surfactant for compacted soil, carries a small instant nitrogen dose, and works best as a regular 3-week maintenance spray during active growing season, a steady drumbeat keeping microbial populations awake. The Molasses Drench is heavier, stickier, meant for slower soaking directly into the soil rather than as a foliar spray. It works best 2 or 3 times per season as a deep microbial reset: early spring to wake the soil after winter, midsummer to push grass through stress, and late summer to prepare roots for cool weather. Worth a quick word on what doesn't deliver the same results. Properly aerated compost tea, brewed 24-48 hours, can be excellent, but most homemade versions are mixed wrong or applied too thin. Diluted milk sprays have a small role in pest deterrents, but contribute almost no microbial fuel. Banana water and vegetable scraps provide minor potassium, but nothing close to the carbohydrate density of either recipe covered here. But there's one factor that decides whether either technique even works on a given yard: the type of grass growing in the soil.
Chapter 5. Cool season versus warm season, the missing variable. Most lawn tonic videos treat all grass as one grass. American lawns actually split into 2 broad families that respond to feeding on completely different schedules. Cool season grasses, Kentucky bluegrass, fine fescues, tall fescue, perennial ryegrass, dominate the northern half of the country, from the Pacific Northwest through the upper Midwest and New England down into the Mid-Atlantic. Optimal growth temperature, 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Peak feeding windows, spring and especially fall. A cool season lawn pushes most of its annual root growth in October. Warm season grasses, Bermuda, zoysia, St. Augustine, centipede, buffalo grass, dominate the southern half of the country, the Sun Belt, the Gulf Coast, the lower Midwest, most of California. Optimal growth temperature, 80 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Peak feeding windows, late spring through midsummer. A warm season lawn goes dormant when soil temperatures drop below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Soil microbes follow a similar pattern, working hardest between 70 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Apply a Jerry Baker Tonic to cool spring soil under a Bermuda lawn, and most of the sugars sit untouched. The grass isn't actively rooting yet, and the microbes are sluggish. Apply that same tonic to Kentucky bluegrass on a cool October day, and the result is dramatic because cool season grass is in its peak rooting phase and the microbes still have enough warmth to respond. The practical timing rules. Cool season lawns, apply the Jerry Baker Tonic every 3 weeks from late April through late June, then again from late August to late October. The fall window is the most important application of the entire year. It's when cool season grasses build their deepest root systems, and feeding the microbiome at exactly that moment pays back in resilience the following summer. Warm season lawns, apply the tonic every 3 weeks from mid-May through August. Skip cool spring and fall periods entirely. The grass is dormant or transitioning, and the microbes aren't active enough to use the sugars. Molasses drench timing. Cool season lawns benefit from drenches in early April, again in late May, and a final one in early September. Warm season lawns, late May, mid-July, and early September. There's also a transition zone, running roughly from northern Virginia through Tennessee into northern Texas, where both grass families struggle and lawns often contain a mix of both. Time applications to whichever grass type dominates, and accept that one feeding window or the other will always be slightly off. If you're not sure which grass you have, cool season grasses generally have softer, finer textured blades, stay green well into late autumn, and tend to look thin or brown during peak summer heat. Warm season grasses have stiffer, coarser blades, turn distinctly brown during winter dormancy, and look their best during the hottest months. The simplest test of all, watch what your lawn does during the first hard frost of fall. Cool season grass stays green, warm season grass turns brown. That single observation answers the question. Matching the program to the grass is what separates a tonic that delivers visible results from one that disappoints. Chapter 6. The Iron Secret, and the mowing rules that finish the job. Here's where the anemia diagnosis comes back in. Synthetic nitrogen makes grass grow fast. Liquid iron makes grass look magnificent without making it grow at all. And this is the trick golf course superintendents quietly rely on, one of the most underused techniques in residential lawn care. In alkaline soils, which describes most American lawns, especially in the central and western regions, iron in the ground gets locked up in chemical forms grass roots simply cannot absorb.
The result is a chlorophyll deficit that shows up as pale, washed-out green, even when nitrogen levels are perfectly adequate. This is the anemia, and exactly like anemia in a person, adding more food, more nitrogen, doesn't fix it. It just causes more growth without any improvement in color, because the actual missing nutrient was never nitrogen to begin with. A foliar spray of chelated liquid iron solves it from a completely different direction. Chelated means the iron is wrapped in an organic molecule that lets the plant absorb it directly through grass blades, bypassing the soil problem entirely. Within 24 to 48 hours of a proper application, the lawn deepens into a rich, near emerald color. No growth surge, no extra mowing, just color. Mix a chelated iron product at the manufacturer's lawn rate. Apply through a hose and sprayer in early morning, no more than once every 3 to 4 weeks during active growth. The most common active ingredients are iron sulfate and iron chelate, often listed as iron HEDA, both widely available at independent garden centers and online turfgrass suppliers. One important warning: liquid iron stains driveways, sidewalks, brick walls, and white siding. It'll leave a rust-colored mark from spray drift. Always rinse hard surfaces immediately after application, and never spray on a windy morning. 2 more habits finish the picture, and both are completely free. The first is the 1/3 rule. Never cut more than 1/3 of the grass blade in a single mowing. Taller grass shades the soil, holds moisture through summer heat, and naturally crowds out weed seeds before they germinate. For most cool season lawns, that means mowing at 3 to 4 inches. For most warm season lawns, 2 to 3 inches, with St. Augustine and Centipede preferring the higher end of that range, and Bermuda tolerating shorter cuts where soil and irrigation supported. The second is grass clipping recycling, leaving clippings on the lawn instead of bagging them. This returns roughly 25% of a lawn's annual nitrogen demand directly back to the soil, for free, every single mowing. Clippings break down within a week or 2 during active growth, and contrary to a persistent myth, do not cause thatch. Thatch is compacted root and crown tissue, not leaf clippings. A homemade tonic, a seasonal molasses drench, and 2 free mowing habits. Total seasonal cost for a typical 5,000 square foot lawn, under $30. Time investment, under 30 minutes per application. The result is a lawn that holds its color from spring through fall, builds itself into something more resilient every year, and outlasts the chemically fed yards on either side of it. A lawn cared for this way teaches something quiet. The strongest growth rarely comes from forcing change at the surface. It comes from correctly diagnosing what's actually missing and feeding the unseen foundation underneath, slowly and patiently, until life takes care of the rest. Malnutrition and anemia look similar from a distance. A pale lawn and a hungry lawn can look almost identical to the eye, but they need completely different fixes, and running the wrong one at the right time or the right one at the wrong time is why so many good recipes end up disappointing people who did everything else correctly. If you'd rather have the full tonic recipe, the molasses drench schedule, your grass type's exact timing windows, and the iron technique all on one printable page instead of scrubbing back through this video, grab the companion ebook linked in the description. Thanks for spending this time here. If this approach changes 1 corner of 1 yard somewhere, that's reason enough. Until next time, may the soil be rich, the roots run deep, and the days hold grace.